Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. There's a lot of people that talk about mental toughness. And then there's the people who live mental toughness and know what's going on from the ground up. That is my next guest, Matt Phillips. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So before we jump in, there's so much good stuff to talk about. Give us the Matt Phillips story. What was the adventure that brought you to the current work that you're doing today? And what were some interesting pit stops along the way?
It really started kind of early on in my life, and I'll fast forward through some key points. But one of the most pivotal moments for me was about 5 years old when I first picked up a baseball. And that baseball became a theme for my life. And when we talk about mental toughness, a lot of it we think about either military or athletics. And so that phrase comes from my athletic background. But, I played high school baseball, and then I had an opportunity to go play Division I college baseball at Creighton University in good old Omaha, Nebraska. And then I had an opportunity after that to go play professionally overseas. So I actually moved to Europe to play professionally for a little bit. And there's some key stories along the way, key moments. I think everyone listening, and you, David, well, those pivotal moments. One for me was my freshman year of college. I was a walk-on at Creighton. So they didn't know who I was. They didn't care who I was. It's just some random kid from Colorado showed up to try out for the baseball team. And I'll give you the short story of it, but I was actually cut after 2 days of trying out. I went through a massive identity crisis because all of a sudden what I thought I was, a baseball player, was taken from me in a snap of a finger. And lo and behold, sophomore year rolls around. I'm still at Creighton. And on a dare from a friend, I tried out again, made the team, somehow, played for the next 3 years, and then played professionally overseas. And what I realized was, that sport wasn't who I was. It was something that I did. And that freshman year, I rediscovered who I was at my core. And so when these events happen, or when jobs shift, or, a program goes well, or it doesn't go well, or a marketing campaign goes well, or it doesn't go well, it's like, well, okay, that doesn't chip away at the core of who Matt Phillips is. It's just, well, okay, I got to make a pivot. But my identity's not stuck in something that it shouldn't be. Anyway, so, played baseball, learned a lot. And, I went in the corporate world for 15 plus years. So I actually started my career in public accounting and was in operations, business development, all sorts of different things. And again, another pivotal moment, David, where I was sitting there working for amazing companies, amazing jobs, moving up the corporate ladder, doing that thing. And as I'm sitting in my office, I'm literally at that moment where that question popped in my head. And it's like, is this all there is to life? Is this what I'm meant to be doing? And it started me down this path which has led me to where I'm at today. Literally, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what that thing meant. But the one thing I realized, I was all about leadership, growing teams, developing teams. That's my athletic background. And I was the same way in business. And I remember to this day sitting in this leadership class, because if one of my companies offered a leadership course, I was there. Yeah. And there was this redhead woman named Naomi up teaching the class. And again, another one of those moments where all of a sudden this question popped in my head of, why can't I do that? And I told her, I took her out to coffee a couple of years ago and told her how influential she was without even knowing it, in leading to me to where I'm at today. And now having had the business 11 plus years, it's pretty incredible. So when I look at what I do today and the journey I've been on, it's that mental piece, right? It's the mindset piece that has been the differentiator through every piece, right? It's when we're up against the wall, it's like, how do we persevere? How do we push through? How do we overcome those thoughts holding us back? And so that's where we focus, building amazing leaders who have the mental toughness to handle whatever comes their way, because that's going to get us where we all want to go. So that's the briefest I think I can tell that, David.
No, that was great. Really fun. And I'm going to get you in trouble one way or the other. I thought you were going down the path of, and there was this redhead at the front of the room teaching the class. And I went up to her and I said, let's go get coffee. How do I do what you're doing? And today she's my wife.
I would have gotten a lot of trouble that day because I was married with 2 kids at that point. So no, that would have been terrible. Terrible day.
Okay, bad idea. Scratch that. David Newman, strike one. There it is. I'm out.
I love it. I love it.
Let's unpack some of this because, as I said in the intro, only half jokingly, there is a lot of buzz around mental toughness and resilience, and people do definitely have either a military connotation out of that or a sports connotation. Entrepreneurs absolutely need mental toughness. Sales leaders absolutely need mental toughness. At the basic, Denzel Washington level, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. What is your definition of mental toughness, and how do we start assessing ourselves in what areas we need to improve so that we can be better with it?
It's such a great question. I'm really glad you asked because we use a lot of words in just everyday life that people are like, yes, I want that, but we don't really know what it means. Like you can't grab it. We have to provide context around it, right? Like, what do we mean? And I always joke that, if I were to walk into any one of your listeners' offices today and just say flat out, like, you need to be a better leader today. And I turn around and walk out. I mean, what are you thinking, right? It's like, Matt, give me some context. Like, what are you talking about? Like, walk faster. I don't know, show up earlier, stay later. Like, what do you mean? And the same thing is true of this mindset stuff and this mental health stuff and like what we call mental toughness. So we've boiled it down to 5 different elements that we talk about it being mentally tough. And the first is confidence. And that's something I struggled with, honestly, a lot coming up in baseball. And then I learned how to be more confident. It's something I really struggled with when I jumped into the thought leadership space, when I started my own business, when I left the comfort of corporate America. I struggle with my confidence, like that imposter syndrome. And that's one of the key elements. Like, do I believe in myself? Right? And do I look in the mirror and be like, yeah, you can do this. You may not know the next step. You may not know like what marketing campaign to launch or who even to talk to, but I know I can figure it out because I believe in myself. So that's that first, confidence. The second is focus. So what are we focused on? Why are we focused on it? How are we avoiding distractions? I mean, when you're talking about launching a business, growing a business, scaling a business, when you're talking about selling your services, you have to be locked in on who you're going after, why you're going after, because there's shiny objects all around us, right? And sometimes the shiny object is a nice case that is disguised as an iPhone or a Droid, right? But it's how do we avoid those distractions? So that's that focus piece. The third element is what we call control, David. And we don't mean type A personalities of we have to control everything, which I'm a type A personality, but that aside, it's emotional control. So emotions are going to knock us one way or the other. And so it's just how do we react? How do we prepare for those situations? So that's that third element. The fourth element is energy, because we take a pretty holistic approach here, meaning 2 things. One is I'm all about personal and professional growth, right? It's tied, it's married. It's the way you act at home is the way you're going to act at work and vice versa. But also we mean taking care of ourselves. So are you recovering? Are you eating right? And we talk about some of those things in how we coach people and different programs we have. And then the fifth element, and probably one of the most important, they're all important, but is what we call consistent action. We know what to do, but sometimes as human beings, actually a lot of the time as human beings, we're not very good at staying consistent with it, sticking to it. So it's like, we all know we should go to the gym. How many of us go to the gym? We all know we should eat vegetables. How many of us really eat vegetables? But it's taking those actions and being consistent with them. So when we talk about mental toughness, we're here to build leaders that are unbelievably confident, focused, emotionally in control, have the energy they need to perform at a high level, and they are committed to that intentional, consistent action.
We interrupt this interview with an important announcement. If you're committed to better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees, get over to doitselling.com right now and grab a copy of my new book. That's the deal, kids. Grab a copy of the new book and then get all the bonuses, companion tools, trainings, and downloads at doitselling.com. Buy the book, get the bonuses. Buy the book, get the bonuses. Buy the book, get the bonuses. That's how it works. I'll see you over there. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. Let's talk about how that shows up perhaps in sales leaders, and certainly what you mentioned, how that shows up when we're transitioning from corporate to maybe a corporate refugee, hang out our own shingle. We're about to go, into entrepreneurship. We don't have the big company behind us or the logo on the business card anymore. Now it's the Matt show or the David show. But let's start with the sales leaders, because you would think most sales leaders have been promoted at some point to that level. They should have a track record of success. But I also know that sometimes sales leaders are promoted based on their sales performance, not based on their leadership performance. So dig into all of that with us.
It's one of those things that when you're used to one way of operating, at least is what I found, and then you switch to another way of operating, it confuses the brain, right? The brain expects that, for example, I should be, if I'm used to working from 8 to 5, or maybe 7 to 5, or maybe 7 to 7, I don't know. But if I'm used to working a certain way or a number of hours, when I start shifting that, the brain doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know what to fill with that extra time. And within that, it affects everything. So for me, with sales leaders, you're bang on. Sometimes we're promoted for the wrong reasons, right? Or maybe sales, and you have every intention, but it's what are we doing to prepare ourselves and maybe prepare our team to actually make that transition? Because it is different. We have to think, act, behave differently. So instead of just worrying about myself as a sales leader and my quota, my goals, my outreach, all those sorts of things, now it becomes our goals, our quotas, our outreach. And now I've got to figure out a way to motivate others. I know how to motivate myself, but how do I motivate others? And sometimes your way it's a way, but it's not the only way. And so that's where I see people question. This is where I question myself too. I'll talk about the entrepreneur track in a minute. But with sales leaders, all of a sudden, you're like, well, why don't they just do it the way I did it? Well, they may try that, they may not. But then we start thinking like, good Lord, am I even good at this? Could I go back to sales? And that's when the self-talk just starts to happen. And it can be snowball if we're not careful of just letting that kind of narrative get out of control. And so that's where I see a lot of sales leaders, right? I think also we tend to tie results with our quality of leadership, meaning it kind of begs the question. I'd be curious your thoughts on this too, but I've really been thinking a lot lately. Let's say for your company, if results go up, revenue goes up, does that mean you're a better leader? I look, I'm like, maybe not. If results go down, does that make you a better or worse leader? Don't know, because based on the situations, again, we have to be careful how we tie our self-worth to the results of whether they're going up or down. It's back to that confidence piece of I could go through a really difficult time in my business, of launching a business, of starting something, of a selling cycle. And I worked really hard. I worked extra hours. I did the right things. I did all this stuff. And just economically, I couldn't handle it. But it was the best leadership growth time in your life. That could be the best time where you were the best leader. So it's just paying attention to some of those things and not tying, again, self-worth to results, but focus on the process, the action. That's what's going to get you where you want to go. So there's a lot tied up in that. And I think when we start tying it too much, then we get that imposter syndrome of,
oh my gosh, for sure. Well, I'm a big believer, just to engage on that topic for a moment, that no matter what, sales leader, entrepreneur, C-suite executive, we are never as good as we think we are on our best day. And we're never as horrible as we think we are on our worst day. So we sort of have an amplified self-image, right? You close a big multi-7-figure sale. You're the king of the world, queen of the world. You're taking over the universe, world's greatest sales leader. The next day, a deal you've been working on for 4 months totally implodes. And it's like, oh my God, I'm such a piece of crap. I can't believe it. I must have screwed this up from the beginning. I'm going to resign. I don't belong in sales. It's like, wait a second. So it's almost like we're in a sailboat and we're going through those same motions. Suddenly, big storm comes in. Boat is bobbing up and down, almost keeling over. Man, you're a terrible captain. Well, what is going on? 6 hours later, smooth sailing, clouds part, beautiful blue sky. Life is good, cool breeze coming on the deck. I am the world's greatest boat captain right now. It's like none of that has to do with your leadership, but it does have to do with how you show up, right?
Yes.
How do you show up in the middle of the storm, and how do you show up in the flash of victory? And, are you down on yourself and down on your team when things are not going great? And do you get a little bit complacent or arrogant or superior when everything is going awesome?
Yes. I love that analogy. And because to your point, the strong captain is going to take you through the storm and get you to the other side. And it's no different than, I'm sure your listeners or you've heard of the difference between a buffalo and a cow when a storm approaches, right? And you study animals, and the cow will run away from the storm. And the buffalo or the bison will actually turn and walk into the storm. It'll run into the storm because it wants to get through the storm quicker. So it gets beat on just same as the cow, but for a shorter period of time because it's running through the other side.
Right.
So again, who's the best leader, better leader? I don't know, the buffalo or cow. I guess depends how you look at it.
Right.
But it's that understanding, like the control of the mind and understanding control of the self-talk is huge, right? That transition for me from, corporate America to my own shingle. Ooh, that was tough because I come out of the gate hot and I'm excited and this is going to be amazing and everybody's going to buy what I want, what I sell and all this sort of stuff. And then I figured out quickly, I have no idea how to position this. I don't know how to sell it the right way. I've been in these different roles. I'm trying to work on the products and features and then all of a sudden they wouldn't buy. And I'd be like, well, is something wrong with the product or features? There's something wrong with me. And then all of a sudden we're down this path of that true imposter syndrome, which is who would want to buy from me? And the truth is what I've learned through athletics and through business and working with all these different corporate clients is that the quicker you have that awareness of when you're saying that to yourself, the quicker you're going to come out of the storm, or the quicker you can turn and run into the storm.
Yes.
And figure out what do they need? What do they want? Even though I'm the expert, it's I have to be humble enough to go after what they want and provide that to them and simplify my life. But keeping that confidence of I've done it before, I can do it again. I've done it in a different environment. Yes, it's different, but I can do this. I believe in myself. And even if to say it 1,000 times every hour, you say it 1,000 times every hour to come through that. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. We'll put it that way.
Absolutely right. And literally, sometimes it is day by day, hour by hour, sometimes even minute by minute.
Yes.
We just got to keep hanging on, right? Get to the next call, get to the next step. Totally, totally right. Tell me a little bit about the empire. So what are the investable opportunities in Matt Phillips' world? What are the different profit centers and the different ways that you serve your clients?
Yeah, it's evolved over the years, right? So we just had our 11-year anniversary in May, and it's completely evolved. So right now, the way we set things up is I do keynote speeches at companies and different conferences, and I do one-on-one coaching with different business leaders, sales leaders, cross-functionally within organizations. And the two things that we really just are super excited about, one is very specific to sales leaders. So we are about to launch actually a kind of revamped version of our sales leadership program. And it's really built for sales managers who, when we open this up, they're making that transition, right? Or have made that transition from individual contributor to sales leader, right? Or they're at that point of building a sales team. Well, we've built this whole program to help them work through that and come up with a system and a process and their leadership philosophy and all these different tools and tricks to motivate their team and make sure they're showing up the best they can for their newly little formed team. Or if they're about to get to that point, you might as well learn it now because it's coming. So prepare yourself for what's coming next. So that's a online type program that we have support for. We're super excited about. And then the other thing we have is what's called the high performance leadership program. So it's for others, again, online based. There's a self-study piece to it with ongoing, group coaching calls, but it's really for anyone outside of sales, operations, finance, HR, those different functions for them to take advantage of that program as well and continue, again, grow combination of leadership and the mental toughness side based on the tools that we implemented. So morphed over the years. I guess the last thing we do is workshops that we'll go out to companies and kind of mess around a little bit there. But yeah, a variety of different ways we deliver. And yeah, I love every one of them. That's the problem, right? I think sometimes you love everything that you do and you're like, oh no, but I got to scale one thing. So
yeah, for sure. Well, and is there a mastermind program? Is that still active right now?
It is still active. We actually have it. I would say it's active for a couple companies right now. So for selective organizations that really want to put their top leaders through a mastermind, right? Being surrounded by other like-minded individuals, we will open that up to certain organizations just based on needs. So right now we've got, 2 going, and we kind of lock those down, David, just based on time.
And that's a private in-house mastermind within a company. It's not like a public open enrollment mastermind with people from all different companies.
Correct. Right now, yes, we're scheming, maybe potentially opening one up for individuals from a bunch of different companies, but we'll see what time allows, right?
Yeah, no, the internal one I think is brilliant. Absolutely. Matt, I'm curious, what was the evolution over the last 11 years? Kind of what services came and went? You just went through all the amazing things that you're doing today to serve your clients. And then also, what's next? Is there something cool and new that's coming in the future? But walk us through kind of the evolution of kind of what services and programs came and went in the 11 years.
Absolutely. It's interesting when you ask that question, 2 things that really stick out. One is when I started, when you get in that thought leadership space, it's natural to go to speeches. And that seems like the easiest way, at least it was for me. And the seeming part, that was what seemed easy. And so early on, I'll tell you a quick story, how the jumping off point for this business. And it's amazing who you meet along the way if you're paying attention. Because like I mentioned, when I started this business, I didn't know before I started the business, I'm like, I don't even know what I want to do next, right? If I have these gifts and talents and I want to use them and spread the message, I'm like, spread what message and all this sort of thing. And I met some very amazing people along the way who gave me great advice. And one individual that I met through a friend of a friend is a guy named Ruben Gonzalez. And if you haven't had him on your podcast, David, he's a fabulous individual. He actually lives about 45 minutes south of me. I live in Colorado now. And Ruben is a 4-time Olympian in luge. He's got a fascinating story. But I went and met Ruben for the first time. And I'll never forget, we're sitting having this coffee, and I had 2 reasons to meet Ruben that day. The first was I, at that time, had a nonprofit. And this nonprofit was focused on helping athletes through different issues that they face. And so there was a kind of a faith-based component to it. But my part was to interview athletes to tell their story because, transition to life after sports, dealing with an injury. We had this list of top 10 themes that I had shown Ruben, and I wanted him to interview for this. And of course, it took him 30 seconds and he said yes. And then we were on to part 2. And part 2 was, I want to ask Ruben every question that I can because he travels the world. He's got multiple books. He does speeches at a bunch of companies. He's built an amazing business. We're 5 minutes from the end of the coffee. And he looks across the table at me. And he says, Matt, do you want to write a book together? I go, excuse me? He goes, do you want to write a book together? He goes, remember, I told you, if you want to be seen as a thought leader, expert, you have to have something to take with you when you speak. It could be a book, it could be a pamphlet, it could be a program, it could be, but something. You have to have something. Do you want to write a book together? You want to talk about imposter syndrome, David? I came up in that moment because I'm sure everyone's sitting there being like, oh my gosh, what an amazing opportunity that this, author has asked to write a book with you. You must have said yes immediately. And I say, no, I came up with every excuse in the book. I said, Ruben, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, doesn't writing a book take years and publishing? I mean, do you self-publish? Do you find a publisher? How do you even start that? And editing, I don't even know an editor. Literally, I'm saying this, David, out loud to this guy. And he goes, Matt, stop. Can you write an article? Honestly, I'm so flustered at this point. My answer was, what do you mean an article? That was my answer, which when I say it out loud, I'm like, how ridiculous is this story? But I said, what do you mean an article? He said, a newspaper article, a magazine article. Can you write an article? I go, yeah, anybody can write an article. He slides that list of top 10 themes I've shown him, flips it around, slides it back in front of me. He says, can you write 10 articles? And I said, yes, I can. He goes, good, write your articles, send them to me. I'll add a word from Ruben at the back. We'll publish a book. 3 months later, we had the book done. And we talked about the book's called Discovery, How to Become a Champion in Business and Life. And we talk about lessons we learn from athletics and how to translate them to your career or to your business and other parts of life. And that to me was like such an important time, because the evolution that we talk about, that was the kickstart, the kick in the behind of the evolution itself, because that started to get me honing in on what do I want to help people with and what do I want to talk about. And out of the gate, it was honestly more focused on the mental side, right? How do we build high performing teams and do all these things? And what's funny is out of the gate, people were like, yes, I want that, but they didn't buy. So sure, I'm doing speeches and doing all that sort of stuff, David, but I always reflect upon this of they weren't buying. And what I found is that my messaging needed to evolve. And one of the big game changers for me was like when you pay attention to what people want and you listen for what they're saying, instead of me shoving my agenda down at someone's throat, it's if I listen, the words like naturally pop up from a marketing perspective, right? I'm not marketing tactics or anything, but I'll never forget it that someone said, well, that's great. Like we need a high performing team, the mental toughness stuff, that's great. And then they said, we're looking for leadership development though. And I'm like, wait a minute, like this is the same thing. Like, what are they not understanding? And guess what? Is because I wasn't using the word leadership.
Yeah.
And so just simple things like that of me paying attention of that shift from again, corporate, because I was an accounting, finance, operations guy.
Right.
And shifting to that place of, using the words that they're using, because I was already doing it, but just that shift in marketing. So that right there, maybe a different answer than you expected, but it was kind of that me learning to evolve myself to listen instead of talk and deliver what they want instead of what I think they need.
Yes.
That's been the biggest evolution. So like this sales leadership program that we've already run and we're revamping right now, I ran a very select beta program with a handful of people. And we went through and I said, I don't know how to build this yet. I don't know what you want, but I'm going to get on these calls. I'm going to teach everything that I know. And then I'm going to ask for feedback the entire way. And then at the end, I will build exactly what you want. That's the evolution of this product. But it was me getting out of my own way. I think sometimes as a thought leader, right? I'm a thought leader. And I'm like, okay, well, I have thoughts and I'm in leadership. So I guess that makes sense. But it just simplified everything when I finally figured out. And it was through a mentor of mine that it was like, no, just ask them what they want and give them that.
Yes.
And yes, you have your expertise and your stories and all those sorts of things, but give them what they want in the format that they want.
Right.
It was a game changer. So again, different answer than maybe you expected, but that's
enormously helpful. People really need to listen and re-listen to that. The way that I talk about that exact same concept, Matt, is give them what they need in a format that they want. Now, when you first hear that, it's like, well, wait a minute. That sounds a little bit unethical. That sounds a little bait and switchy. Isn't that bait and switchy? I said, well, if you just leave it there, it is. But we need to finish the loop because there's a third piece of this. So sell them what they want, give them what they need so that they get what they want. Mm-hmm. And so now it's a complete loop. You've maintained your integrity. They don't know what they want. Like it's like them coming to a doctor. And, imagine if you're a doctor, Matt, and I walk into your office and I'm like, hey, doc, how you doing? I need the green pills, the orange pills, and the blue pills. Can you just pass those down to me? It's like, whoa. We haven't diagnosed anything. Yes. I haven't prescribed anything. You're not ready for treatment yet, but I listen for what you want. Mm-hmm. I tell you what you want, and I know that there's the good fit to the outcomes that I can help you create, right? I give you what you need so that you can, in fact, get what you want. And you just put that beautifully, the way that you articulated that. At first, it felt weird. I wasn't really sure. But then I realized, oh, wait a second. We're talking about the same thing. We're just using different words.
Yes.
And that was when the floodgates opened for you.
That was the game changer. And it's still an evolution, right? I still have to catch myself not defaulting back to, well, I'll do this.
Yeah.
It's let me pause for a minute and actually ask them. Would that work? Would that resonate with you? We've got this other program that's outside of, again, athletics is a huge passion of mine. And I've got 3 kids 2 in high school, 1 in grade school, and they play different athletics. And so we are actually going through this process of launching a student athlete leadership program. And it's all leadership, mental toughness, everything we talk about with a student athlete twist on it. How do we be great in school? How do we be great in our sport? How do we, learn these things that I didn't know early on to like make you great people?
Yeah.
And the first step was because I was getting calls from parents and coaches of like, how do you do this? And could you come in and work? And I'm like, man, they like, God or the universe or what people believe or don't believe in. Like when you hear things 3 times, it's kind of like, you should probably pay attention. Right. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I have to pay attention because it was like 4, 5, 6. And then, somebody hits you in the side of the head, like, hey, yeah, it's right there.
Right.
But the first step was, my wife's the CEO of our business, but we got together and we're like, I don't know what they want. We're both like, I don't know. Let's get them together and ask.
Yeah.
Like, what are the biggest challenges? Let's understand your pain. What are you dealing with? Parents, coaches, like teachers, all this sort of stuff. Like, what do you need help with? If we built it this way, would that even make sense? What about this? Would that even make sense? And we had a session. I have a huge calendar over here. And on May 21st, we met with this group of 7 coaches, and it was a game changer. And guess what? We just asked them what they wanted. And now we're starting to slowly build and we're iterating. And I'm going to get feedback on every single stage. Yeah. Like, did that resonate? How could we have done that better? And then I'm going to build them exactly what they want to have the biggest impact on these student athletes and making the coach's life as simple and easy as possible to implement this thing.
Wait. We're not just going to listen to this episode. There are downloads, there are resources, there are links, there are bonuses waiting for you on this episode's page when you go over to doitmarketing.com/podcast. That's right, doitmarketing.com/podcast. Grab the notes right under this episode. See you over there. Well, Matt Phillips, I know that people want to connect with you. How do people get into your world? What resources, downloads, connections, what can we share with people to get them connected to you?
First, go check out our podcast. It's called the Matt Phillips Podcast. Please go check it out. It's all about, again, leadership, the mindset piece. We have a tilt of sales on it because I don't care if you're in accounting or a thought leader, we're all in sales. So It's about, again, influencing others. So go check out the Matt Phillips Podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn, please. So it's, LinkedIn, but Matt Phillips 15 and Matt Phillips 15. You can go connect with me there. And then the last piece, because part of leadership is knowing thyself. And you have to know how you show up to other people. And then once you understand that, you can potentially adjust your approach or use that tool to understand them, to get more out of them. And so we have what we call our superpower quiz on our website that you can take a look at too. But if you go to mattphillipscoaching.com/quiz, it just gives you a little insight into your superpower and how people are seeing you and how you're showing up. Again, not good or bad, but just a bit of knowledge so that you can, again, continue to get the most out of your team. So those are a couple of ways, David, that people can connect with us here at Matt Phillips Coaching.
Tremendous. And all of those links, by the way, are going to be directly under this episode, one mouse click away when you go to thesellingshow.com. Matt Phillips, you are a rock star. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for all this value that you just dropped on us. Lots to digest, folks. This is going to be a re-listen again, take some notes, pull over on the car, get off the treadmill, get out your notepad, and then also pop over to all of those links, Matt Phillips Podcast and the quiz, and also Matt's LinkedIn profile directly under this episode. Matt, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.